line live from earlier. Today, there was new information on News Nation pertaining to Kaylee, Maddie, Brian Korberger, the roommates, and Emily and Hunter who came to the house. We're going to talk about all that during this live stream. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McGangie, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are welcome during this live stream. The viewing screen will be of the state of Idaho. Although the information that I'm about to discuss is very harrowing and disturbing, I still felt as though a peaceful backdrop would help the continuity and the flow of this bizarre, crazy story, harrowing as it is. Thank you for your time. Let's chop it up, everybody. Welcome to the Vault Exhale. You will be viewing the state of Idaho during this live stream. Thank you. We learned from Mr. Gonsalves that his daughter was in the bed with her best friend, Maddie Mae. She was unalived, Maddie first. He got this information from forensics. Maddie Mae was unalived first, allegedly more inebriated than his daughter. Just assuming this is what was told to him. His daughter naturally had heard she was in a corner bed years ago, and he said that she was punched in the face numerous times and her nose was broken. We also learned of another person at the house by the name of Emily. She came to the house as a friend of Dylan and Hunter. They both came to the house by Dylan that morning after the murders occurred. Obviously, Dylan, Bethany were afraid to go upstairs to see about their friends, the state of the house, so they called these two people over. But before, we also learned from Mr. Gonsalves and from the grand jury documents that when all these murders happened and Dylan decided to leave her room to go to Bethany's room after 4 a.m., she passed Xana on her way downstairs. It's very baffling information. And I had always said that in hearing the crazy story that someone passed out outside, everyone thought it was a roommate. We finally learned here recently that it was not a roommate that passed out on that 911 call, that it was their interpretation and version of what had happened in the house. So we learned from Mr. Gonsalves and these documents that Dylan ran out of her room and saw Xana Kernodle down on the floor, did not check on her, did not check on a pulse, did not call 911. She went to Bethany's room. These young ladies could not have slept no more than 3 hours at the most because they're on their phones at 7 a.m. texting and calling different people, which is still baffling to some of us. We also hear Mr. Gonsalves saying, that no one should be saying anything negatively about these girls. We hear Banfield riding the same ride during this commentary. But the point is, you cannot tell people how to think. You cannot tell people how to react to certain information. Just like you're spinning the web of what allegedly happened in this house with these dead people and the reaction from Bethany and Dylan and Emily and Hunter. But the point is, it is a version. And as I said in my live this morning or this afternoon, everything's about interpretation. You're entitled to interpret things the way you see fit. You're entitled to believe the version that has been handed to you. And even in the comments under the said video, people were still confused and still thinking something was off, even with the information that was given to Banfield by Mr. Gonsalves. Rightfully so, because it proves the point that I had already said. I already felt that somebody saw somebody dead. And I always said, imagine taking that secret to the grave and never telling anyone. Well, she told it in the grand jury indictment that she did see Xana lying down, but she didn't check on her. But yet she was fearful. So she calls these two people over, Emily and Hunter. The more baffling part of the story is now knowing that she did see a person dead that was her roommate. They go into the house. Emily waits at the bottom of the stairs, obviously too afraid to go up. But like I said, you would smell death. Death has its own smell. Blood has its own smell. Hunter went up the stairs and went immediately to the kitchen to get a knife. This is in the charging documents, which it makes no sense to me. Why would he go get a knife? So that means he feared for his safety, that he must have felt and smelled something was not right. Possibly somebody could still be in the house, which alludes to the notion, why would these girls stay in the house? See, all of this, as I always tell people, if you listen, the truth is somewhere in the describing of the details. If this guy is a stranger to this house and he goes to this house under whatever you've told them, and he goes up the stairs, and his first instinct is to get a knife. The rest is self-explanatory. That he felt some type of way to where he felt like he should go get a knife before even going into Xana's room. He looks into her room, I guess, after getting the knife and determines that these two are dead because he had to have seen both. The room is not very big. He had to either touch her, shake her, or Ethan and determine they are not alive. But where all this is still baffling is he tells them to run, get out of there. They leave, go outside, try to call 911. And this is where we hear the passing of the phone by different parties and the dispatcher realizing that there are different people on the phone. And she's trying to get them to stop that so she can get a better understanding of what is transpiring at that moment. Not a man in a mask, but what is going on at that time. And when you listen to all of that information, listen to what is said about this guy going up the stairs, going in the kitchen to get a knife, looking at the kids, realizing they're unconscious, go call 911. There's no conversation that the children are dead, which is baffling to many people and baffling still to the queen. There is no description of dead people. There's no description of smelling death, blood. There's no description of seeing blood. Why not? So Mr. Gonzalez can say whatever he wants in the interviews that nothing changes anything. This information being released to the public doesn't change anything. Well, we know that the children are dead. We know this. We know they're dead. They have a suspect. They've arrested a suspect. He will be going to trial in August. Brian Korberger, we get all that. But the point still remains. You calling someone over still alludes to the fact that you were fearful. You stayed in this house with no regard for the other people, no regard for your own safety, and you called other people. You can't deny that. You can't deny that. Hello, Jess. You cannot deny that they called other people so many hours later, that they slept in this house thinking something wasn't right, calling these girls' phones. No one is answering. No one is responding. Calling them on cell phones, different apps, no response. And then wake up to call strangers on phones, mothers, friends. And then these two people, Hunter and Emily, they come. Something wasn't right even when they got to the house at the bottom level. Because as I said, you can smell death. These children literally had been baking in this home for hours. Damn near 8 or 7.5 hours. It is wintertime. I'm assuming they had the heat on in the house. If not, I can stand corrected. But you get my drift. Heat on, dead people, 4 dead people. The house should have been permeating with the smell of death. And I know that it was smelling of death for the obvious reasons. There were dead people there. And the fact that a detective said in the charging documents that as soon as he stepped into the house, blood rose to his nose. So when the girls woke up that morning texting different people, blood should have been raising to their noses as well. Stirring about in that room downstairs, the smell should have started to permeate. Stay woke, everybody. As each minute and hour drew before they made that fateful 911 call, the smell should have been permeating in that house. And so for Hunter to go up the stairs to the second floor And the first thing he does is go to the kitchen to get a knife, allegedly. That should tell you everything you need to know besides what is common sense. He knew something was not right as soon as he hit that second floor. Say it again, Queen. Hunter knew something was not right when he got to the second floor. He went to the kitchen first to get a knife, meaning he feared for his safety. That's my interpretation. Did he touch the victims to ascertain or not? And that's why some people in the comments under the video said, what was the purpose of them going back in the direction from the dispatcher? Because the dispatcher tells them to go back to check for a pulse. That should have been done when he first went into the house. Excuse the commercials, everybody. That should have been done when he first was called over, went upstairs, first went and got a knife, then went to Xana's room. He should have checked for life, signs of life, when he went and saw her lying in the floor, and then also seeing Ethan. And the room is very small. No way you would miss that big old man sitting in that room. Come on now. No way you missed her, because it is said her feet were facing the door. And that's a strange way to pass out in a room drunk. That's why I tell people, you have to listen to the information. And now you have the information. And what would make a person think that's a normal way to pass out from drinking? Your feet facing the door. Say it again, Queen. Her feet were facing the door. Does that sound normal? Do not know how Ethan was positioned in the room, but the point is still, once he got up there, Bethany and Dylan are up there. I don't know how close they got, but they should have used deduction. Something isn't right. The smell of death should have rose in their noses from the time they got up to the point that they went up the stair landing with Hunter. He tells them to go back out, call 911. They should have known something was not right, such as the kids weren't alive. And we know that they knew something wasn't right because that defeats the purpose of them calling Hunter and Emily, calling parents and different people at 7 a.m. on the phone. And then some will weigh it, well, they didn't seem too concerned because they're calling all these people, yet they're not going up the stairs to check. And even Banfield asked Mr. Gonzalez that, and he was like, yeah, it's a puzzle, but it wouldn't have changed anything. So we ask that question now. Could something have been done differently? Of course. We learned that this is a brutal attack with a knife and a punching of a fist to a woman's face, Miss Kaylee. She was cornered in that bed. She couldn't have gotten out. It would have been a struggle trying to fight this man, but he was crafty enough to be stabbing one, and then one awakes, which is Kaylee, and he punches her in the face, and then, I guess, proceeds to stab her to death. So he was moving quickly. Don't know if Maddie was dead when Kaylee woke up, but this is the information from the father. His daughter awoke, and he punched her in the face. And naturally, he did that to subdue her. And she was cornered, couldn't get out. And that would be a terrible way to die. Cornered in, fighting for your life, trying to get out, fighting a strong person, and lose the battle. But where it's more baffling is he leaves that room and goes down the stairs and around the corner to the left, which would be Xana's room. Why did he go there? Did he confront them? Did they confront him? What was the dog doing? How long did the dog bark? Lots of questions. Why is the door unlocked for him to get in? If he entered into the kitchen area, did that door normally stay unlocked? Was it broke? Did he ever do a dry run at this house? Lots of questions. But what made him go around that corner? Who was the target? Some think it was Maddie, because he liked more of her pictures on social media. message one of the girls? Was he angry because he didn't get a response? How long was he stalking the girls? He'd been to this house 12 times, including the morning he went and the morning he returned after 9 a.m., which would make it 14 times. Purchased a knife earlier in the year. So then you have to ask, when was he accepted to school? How did he find the girls on social media? Suggestion, leaflet, or scrolling the school, riding around, looking for a victim, someone to hunt. Lots of questions. Welcome to the Vault Excel. Why is there no description of Ethan and Xana being deceased in the 911 call? I do find that strange. Mr. Gonzalez says people act and react differently. He said his son played a prank on Kaylee years back where he made it seem like he and the mother were being attacked, and Kaylee ran upstairs and called the father. He hid upstairs. What I found baffling about that story is that Kaylee got to live that out. And as I said in my live earlier, you have to be careful what you speak, because you can speak things into existence. I believe in that. I believe it. It's in the scripture. It's in Psalms. Speak it and it shall be so. So the brother spoke it into existence. That little prank he played on Kaylee came to fruition. And instead of the attacker attacking he and his mother, the attacker ended up attacking his sister Kaylee and Maddie and two other friends, Ethan and Xana. Imagine that. And it's true, everyone does not behave the same. Everyone does not have the same thought process. But in the end, it's still going to look bizarre to somebody on that jury that these girls stayed in this house and obviously were fearful because they called someone over to the house even after texting different people the morning of and after the slangs. That you can't take away because they've put it in the documents. You have people to testify that they were called and came over to the house, Emily and Hunter, and God forbid whoever else they contacted. Now, as for Kohlberger, lying in wait and this 2 o'clock run that the girls wanted to go order food, Dylan, we learned that the girls were fraternizing before the slangs and then each retreated to their rooms. Dylan wanted to order food. She tried to contact some Uber driver, but he wasn't available. So I guess they decided not to do the food truck run or pick up food. And some question pertaining to Mr. Kohlberger. He had already set in motion that he was going to unalive his target or targets. So I don't think it would have mattered if the girls went back out to eat food, get food, bar hop again. He was going to lie in wait because he had already planned in his head that was the purpose of going out to the house the first 12 times. Checkmate. He already knew what he wanted to do. And on that fateful morning in November, that was his plan. And he executed his plan. And you know that he rode around that street, God knows how many times, before he eventually parked and walked up to the house because he watched. And that house had many vantage points to watch. Checkmate. Many places a person could have stood and watched to make sure cars are parked, whose car belongs to whom, lights on, lights off, stay woke. So it wouldn't have mattered about a food truck run going back out. He would have waited. And he waited anyway. Because no one's going to tell me he wasn't already there in the area within an hour of the children dying. They've mapped that on the GPS, riding around. He was already there in the area long before the children probably even made it back home from their night out. So with all this new information, how do you all think? I posed a question on my community page. Feel free to comment below this video and on that commentary on my community page. And I also put up another poll pertaining to the food truck run that the girls wanted to go about 2 o'clock. Do you think it would have made a difference pertaining to Kohlberger lying in wait to unalive these kids. So we learned that Kaylee was punched in the face. We learned that Xana was seen by Dylan after 4 a.m. and not checked for a pulse, allegedly, and no 911 call. Just Dylan dialing different numbers of the girls and trying to reach them on different apps to no avail. We learned they were up in the morning texting parents and different people. We also learned that there is an Emily and a Hunter that made it to the house and also discovered the bodies of Ethan and Xana. But when they talk on the 911 call, the only conversation is about Xana, which is still baffling to me. You only hear Ethan come into the picture as a them from Dylan or Bethany. Near the 3-minute mark of this dispatch call, she says them instead of saying she or her, which the dispatch should have called and said, them who? Who are you speaking of? And that's still baffling to me, that the whole conversation was about her, she, which would be Xana, not them, him, her. Why not? And why was there no description of a bloody scene, smelling of death, smelling of blood? They're not alive, they're stiff, they're cold. It's very strange to me. Very strange to me. Brian Kohlberger. Mr. Gonsalves got information from someone, I'm assuming it's a student from Washington State, that Mr. Kohlberger did not attend classes work on that following Monday. He said he was sick. And naturally, I'm assuming this can be verified. So I don't think this was something that someone would lie about. So for the little busybody that decided to comment under my 15-second short, I'm spreading this information. No, if you have a problem with the information, you need to take it up with Mr. Gonsalves. He's the one speaking to Ms. Banfield and News Nation. So if you have a problem with the information, I say you take it up with him. Because obviously someone notified him to tell him Kohlberger did not go to work. And I don't think it will be hard for that to be verified, that he went or didn't go. It's not that serious. And it's amazing how people still want to defend this man with all this evidence coming out and information coming out from the charging documents and witness statements. So, Mr. Kohlberger, if you did not go to work, why not? It was also said that he had never learned this coursework at Washington State. And just so happened at the university, and then in the month of December, he's arrested for the Idaho forced slaves. How interesting and how convenient. So, Mr. Kohlberger, were you sick? But then some are going to say you can't be sick because you took a photograph, a selfie of yourself sitting inside of your bathroom with the no shower curtain in view, hair wet, pale face, clammy looking with a thumbs up. So when did you take ill on that Sunday? Afternoon, evening, wee hours of Monday? Stay woke, everybody. When did you take ill, Mr. Kohlberger, that you couldn't attend work on that Monday? Were you tired, exhausted, scared, fearful, thinking about what you had left behind at King Road, such as a knife sheath? Because you did return after 9 a.m., because you knew your knife didn't have a partner. And you knew you had to have left it in that house, and you were debating about going back in there. My. The webs we weave. But you didn't go back in because it was daylight. And you didn't want to risk being seen. But see, what's baffling to me is that you're on audio 50 feet away, at least Xana crying, she's on audio, and naturally audio comes with visual. So if there is audio of this child whimpering, crying, dog barking, I would also assume there's a visual of a man going into this glass door and exiting out the glass door. Checkmate. Stay woke, everybody. So you have fucked up, sir. You most definitely fucked up. That's the latest information, everybody. Pertaining to the roommates, Dylan Bethany, the slain students, Emily, Hunter, going to the scene. As I said, no description on the 911 call of dead people, which is very bizarre to me. The fact these girls laid in this house with death permeating and never once going to check on their friends. Dylan running out of that room originally and never checking on Xana. So that's why I asked the question in the live earlier. Did Xana normally pass out in the floor to where it was a normal thing, to where somebody would pass by and say, oh, she's all right, she's just drunk. But she wasn't drunk. If indeed she did this in the past, she was not drunk. Could have been drunk before death, but she wasn't drunk when Dylan passed her. She was dead. And this is baffling. So no matter how you weigh it, it's still set in stone. Dylan walked by a dead person and never went to check on the person, just to see, hey, girl, you need to get up, get in your bed. So that's why I asked the question, was it normal for the young lady to pass out in her floor? Probably not. So now you got to weigh what was actually heard in the house as far as sound. Mr. Korberger making his way to the third floor, unaliving these young ladies, dog barking, Xana and Ethan up possibly, Dylan up back and forth because she hears noise. She's opening her door at least 3 times, yelling at the people making too much noise. But at some point the noise had to stop because all 4 ended up dead. And then we have Mr. Korberger walking by her in that short hallway and says nothing to her. And all she sees is a man in a mask, bushy eyebrows. So he leaves this female alive and does not touch the other roommate, Bethany, on the first floor. And as I had said before, they were not the intended victims, obviously, because he had to have known who all lived in the house. They all had taken a picture together earlier the evening before. So Korberger knew who lived in that house because he was following these women on social media. He has seen the pictures, he has seen the videos, he has seen the house in the videos, he has seen the cars, he had been to this house numerous times. He knew which one was which, who drove which car. Of course he knew. And he lied in wait. So a food truck run at 2 a.m., 3 a.m. would have made no difference. He would have taken his chance to go in that house as he did, to get his targets, execute the plan, which he did, and leave the house, which he did. Take a selfie to put a stamp on what he had done, and he seemed elated to me and happy of what he had done. And it was brutal. And now knowing that he punched Kaylee in the face several times, broke this child's nose, he has proven that he is extraordinarily violent and a very angry person. So what was the motive? Angry because someone did not reply? Angry because he was not well liked by women, couldn't get a date, wasn't favored by women, couldn't get the type of girl that he liked, idolized, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, green-eyed. I'm not their type. There's something wrong with me. I've got a mental problem, previous drug problem. I'm awkward. I don't know how to talk. I don't know how to act. I don't know how to converse. I don't think I'm handsome. I don't think I'm good enough. I'll show them. See, everything's about interpretation. Had Korberger learned how to speak and talk and integrate with people, accept himself, make his way into the world to talk and converse, he would be in a better place today and not in a county jail. Checkmate. And these children will be alive today. You see, everything is about interpretation. How you see yourself, how you talk to people, how you act, how you respond. This story didn't have to end this way. It didn't have to be a story at all, but it is what it is. Because it's about life choices. Mr. Korberger does not like himself, as I said to someone on the channel earlier. He does not like himself. He probably never took selfies of himself. I doubt that we'll hear that he ever took selfies of himself because he's a self-hater. He's a loather. He's a self-loather. He doesn't like himself. And he exhibited that at King Road. I don't like me, so I definitely can't like you. And you don't like me, so let me show you what I'm working with. Self-hate. Self-hate. And there's probably no telling how many pictures he had in his phone of these girls and possibly other women as well. I won't doubt that he may have been obsessed with some other young ladies. And it'll be interesting to find out if he was stalking any other women at Washington State. And we also learned that 2 years ago or so, Xana's sister was a student at Washington State at the time of these murders. How ironic. How ironic. Did Korberger know that? Had he also been watching Xana's sister? Stay woke, everybody. Now, Mr. Gonsalves tells Banfield that these girls are still grieving, going through the motions of what happened at that house and the other two kids that were there, Hunter and Emily. Is that so? Because we learn in time, people learn to move on, people learn to adjust. Do these kids have any anxieties, PTSD about being alone, living in an apartment, having a roommate? And as I have told you all jokingly, but I'm dead serious, I trust no one, and I definitely wouldn't want to have my fate held in the hands of another human being, especially as a roommate, not after listening to this story and hearing the information that is slowly trickling out. Because that's a terrible place to be, that you're in dire need or needing an ambulance or someone to call 911 and no one has the fortitude to think of dialing 911 after now we learn seeing you lying in the floor and just assume you're drunk. And whether the child could have been saved or not, it's principle. But as Mr. Gonsalves says, we shouldn't be judging and we're out of line. Banfield says people shouldn't be making up conspiracies. They're wrong. They're shameful. I'm not bringing any conspiracies. I'm not saying there are any conspiracies. I'm just saying common sense should tell a person something ain't right. I probably need to get up and inquire or get the hell out of that house and then inquire. But because these kids had issues with law enforcement, with noise complaints, perhaps that's the reason why Dylan and Bethany didn't want to call the police. They called others instead. But I am glad Banfield mentioned that to Mr. Gonsalves, as he replied, yes, it is a puzzle to why Dylan didn't inquire after seeing Xana lying on the floor after 4 a.m. Korberger is facing the death penalty if found guilty of the 4 murders. Should he get the death penalty? Or should he get life in prison? Some of you don't believe that he is the culprit. You're entitled to your opinion. I do believe they have the right person. I don't think that anybody else is involved. If they can bring said information or proof that somebody else is involved, then I'll accept that information and weigh it. But so far, the district attorney has not brought any other indictments of anyone else being involved or in cahoots, coercions with Mr. Korberger. But their behavior is odd, the roommates, to me, and that's my interpretation. I'm more of a realist, and growing up in the city, you view things different than most people, and that's what people don't seem to understand about everyone's journey in life. How you view life, I don't view life. I view life according to my circumstances, how I was raised, how I was taught, what I saw as a child, what I've seen as an adult. So I don't view things the way another person. And Mr. Gonsalves, Banfield, you can't judge people on that, because everyone isn't raised the same. Everyone hasn't walked the same journey. And when you've lived a certain life differently than other people, where you had to stay aware of your faculties, you see life differently and you view life differently. And due to the fact that I personally have been born with a discerning spirit, I most definitely see things differently. And I'm going to share a quick experience with you, and I'm going to check out of here. Earlier today, I was thinking about a young man that I saw outside many months ago, and he had walked by me at a bus stop where he had threw something down on the ground, and he had turned around and looked at me, I guess waiting to see if I was going to say something. Naturally, I didn't say anything because he probably was some fruitcake nut job. So today I was out talking to a young lady, and she just so happened to get a visual of a guy. He just so happened to be in our vicinity. And I said, oh my goodness, that's that guy I was thinking about today for some weird, strange reason. And just poof, out of the blue, he pops up. And she was going on and on about who she thought he was and his demeanor, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I was telling her, well, you really don't know him and what he's about. I think he's into nefarious business. But anyway, the point is, I thought about him today and I saw him. He popped up. He was several, feet away, but I saw him. The point I'm trying to make is that everything happens for a reason. There was some reason that this fellow was on my mind briefly. And then poof, voila, he so happens to be standing at the end of a sidewalk where I'm sitting, on a little brick stoop talking to someone, and poof, he pops up out of nowhere. That's the point I'm trying to make, is that everybody's journey is different and everybody sees and feels things differently. And I know that when I feel and see things, there's a reason. So there was a reason for me possibly thinking about this person for some unknown reason, because he eventually popped up. Call it what you want. Those kids knew something was not right after 4 a.m. when they could not contact Ethan, Santa, Maddie, and Kaylee. And they got up not even 3 hours later, dialing everybody under the sun, calling different people, Bethany calling her parents, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Dylan calling this person, being on different apps, working with a resume, doing all type of weird stuff to be so allegedly drunk, inebriated, as Mr. Gonzalez wants to paint these children. But yet they're on the phone with different people, different apps, doing God knows what, calling different people. And he even mentions that in his commentary to Banfield about people who were reached out to but didn't answer. Don't know what that's really about, if he's talking about law enforcement or who these girls may have reached out and they didn't respond. The point is, these girls lived in the house, not others. Not Hunter, not Emily, not Pookie, not Ray Ray, not the parents, not Bubba, not Susie Mae, but Dylan and Bethany. They lived there. They paid bills there. Their name was on the lease. So common sense is, if something is awry in the house, something doesn't feel right in the house, something doesn't seem right, it was their responsibility to get up and check, go look, do something. Because it all is contradictory when you fast forward hours later and you're calling Hunter and Emily to your own house to say, hey, come over here. I need you to go upstairs. I think something isn't right. Can you imagine that conversation? And if these kids had any sense, they would say, well, what happened? Why are you calling us? Why don't you go up there? You live there. You're calling and you don't get an answer. Go check. Why won't you go check? I don't know. I'm scared. Why are you scared? I don't know. I saw a guy with a mask on. What? In a house? And you haven't heard from these girls and Ethan? Stay woke, everybody. Did the conversation go like that, Dylan? Because somebody had to have a brain in this circle. And I'm assuming at least Emily or Hunter had a brain to say, you saw a guy in a mask and you still stayed in his house even after not hearing from the girls, and you didn't even get up to even go check. You didn't run out of the house to at least call law enforcement or somebody, have them go check. So maybe that's what Mr. Gonzalez is talking about. Maybe the girls did try calling other people after 4 a.m. and they didn't get any answer. But then you have to use common sense. It's a night where kids will be drinking, having fun. Are you really expecting someone to be answering their phone at 4 a.m.? Stay woke, everybody. Make it make sense. And I'm not blaming Dylan and Bethany for the murders of their friends, but I do find fault in not checking, because in the end, your life should have been just as valuable as these kids' lives. And right now, it has been proven that both girls knew something was off because they called different people the next morning, barely 3 hours later, and those two people came to the house to check things out. And the discovery was grim. One thing Mr. Gonzalez said in this commentary that I thought was very unique and interesting. Basically, he's saying there shouldn't be any blame, conspiracies pertaining to Bethany, Dylan. It is what it is, what happened. He describes his daughter Kaylee as coming down to see her friend. Innocent day of his daughter going to see her friend, and then this incident took place. Don't you find that comment strange? Because when you look at the picture, the infamous picture of all the kids on the backside of the house by that glass, what does Kaylee say in the caption about being the luckiest girl in the world to be surrounded by her friends? But yet Mr. Gonzalez describes this event of his daughter going down to Moscow, Idaho, to be with a friend, not her friends. Checkmate. Weigh it how you see fit. But I listen to everything. And there's always some truth in the wordings. Kaylee went down to see her friend. He didn't say go hang with the girls. Maybe I'm being overzealous. Maybe I'm reading something into nothing. But as I said before, everything is in the wording and in the details. This is my part 2 to my earlier live. Please check out my extensive library, my shorts on this information pertaining to Kaylee and her injury of a broken nose. Dylan seeing Xana lying on the floor after 4 a.m. Hunter and Emily showing up to the house to find Xana and I guess Ethan, which was never mentioned in the 911 call to the very end. No description of seeing blood, injuries, cold to the touch, not alive. And the fact that Mr. Korberger did not go to work on Monday. Very interesting information. And then we look at that infamous selfie where he's putting a thumbs up to his grim work of killing 4 kids. And I also learned they did move the case to Boise. I don't know how I missed that, but it is in another city as the defense cried and moaned and they got that one victory. But once again, Mr. Korberger will be standing trial for the murders of these 4 individuals in August. He is facing the death penalty if indeed he is found guilty. And I do believe they have the right person, and I do believe he deserves the death penalty. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign the Ganji 129 Cash App. Stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. Thank you so much. Thank you, Salty, Jess, Brooke, Paris. How you doing? Thank you all so much for your time. If any of you would like to continue this discussion, I can stay on a little bit longer, but these were my thoughts pertaining to the information. The very reason why I posted to the community page these latest details. The backdrop is the state of Idaho, if you are curious. Every depiction you've seen, 42 minutes now running, are sceneries pertaining to the state of Idaho. And I thought it was only befitting to show scenery from this very beautiful state. Sadly, these children are not alive, and they should be alive. They had their entire lives ahead of them, and they were brutally snuffed out by a killer. If anyone has anything they'd like to say, feel free to, give me your commentary, or I will check out of here pertaining to the latest information by Mr. Gonsalves and the grand jury documents. It's very baffling information, reading all of that, listening to all that information earlier today pertaining to the kids. But I knew that somebody in that house had seen those kids dead. I've always said that. I said they may take it to the grave, Bethany and Dylan. Never tell anybody that they went back out and looked in the rooms, because that would be a harrowing thing to tell a person, oh yeah, I went back and I saw them dead, but I never called 911. I always said they would take that to the grave. And we now know it's the truth. She did see her lying in the floor, but assumed she was drunk. Once again, as I said, you're entitled to your interpretation of the said information. But the one thing I've learned about people don't tell everything. And I've said this 1,000 times pertaining to true crime and just people in general. What I tell you, I didn't tell somebody else. What I told you isn't what I told the police. What I told you isn't what I told my family or my friends. Stay woke. And we've learned this with true crime, that people tell different versions to different people because they're not expecting those people to cross paths to examine the said information. So imagine what Dylan and Bethany have told this person, that person, their parents, and then authorities. Just saying. Because imagine telling someone that, oh yeah, I ran out of that room and I saw that girl lying there on the ground. You think there's not going to be somebody like Queen to say, and you didn't think to go over and check on her? She's your friend, isn't she? Well, I just thought she was drunk. Feet first toward the door. You thought she was drunk? No, I'm not trying to be mean, just asking. Oh, I know. I feel so bad. But I just thought she was drunk. And after seeing that guy walk by with that mask on and nobody was answering, I just ran on out. But yeah, it is odd. Her feet would be facing the door. But no, I didn't touch her. I didn't check her pulse or nothing. Hello, Angela. I wonder what they told their parents before 911 was called. Exactly. That's the point I've always said in talking about true crime. If you watch any documentary, as I was watching a documentary about the lady who killed the dentist out in Texas because she was madly in love with this guy, started dating the dentist, the female dentist, and she just couldn't move on with her life. So she hired a black guy and a Hispanic girl and some other people to help kill the female dentist. When the one young lady was on the witness stand, who was the driver for this hit, the defense told her, you've lied a lot, have you not? During this interrogation. She admitted it. Yes, I have. She says, I lied a lot because I didn't know what to say. All these different questions coming at me, I didn't know what to say. But the point is that she lied, and she told different lies. So common sense would tell you, when the cat got out of her bag that she's being interrogated, you think she didn't tell a lie to her mother, a lie to her friend, a lie to the boyfriend, a lie to the detective, a lie to another detective? Of course. So I won't doubt these girls have done the same. As they love to say, it's the nature of the beast. I always said that with the Summer Wells case. Damn well those two parents told different versions to the detectives, the TBI, to different people, neighbors, because you're not expecting these people to cross paths with one another. So I'll tell you one thing and I'll tell my mom another thing and I'll tell the detective another thing. It's very scary. and you know people. And the more I live, the more I see that there are a lot of people walking around that hold the key to missing people, dead people. Killers confess, they tell people, they pillow talk. And there are people walking around carrying that dirty secret of a dead person, missing person, assault, attack, a rape, child molested. And people hold it. Every time I watch a documentary about true crime, there's always somebody confessing. Yeah, she told me. He told me what happened. Well, why you didn't call the police? I don't know. I was scared. I feared for my safety. I didn't believe it. So imagine what these girls have told other people. And then when I listen to the 911 call, I'm listening to what Banfield is saying. Oh, you can hear the hysteria. It matches what they're saying. And you can see that, you can hear that they were upset in the 911 call. But then my other half was telling me, even listening to the 911 call a month ago, am I hearing hysteria? It's all about interpretation. Because in the end, we now know those girls knew Xana was lying out on that floor. And by the time they got up, they should have been smelling death. And most definitely by the time they made the 911 call with Hunter and Emily there, they should have smelled death. And as they have always said about death, it is a smell unlike any smell. You don't ever have to have experienced death to know the smell. I've heard that from every detective that has ever spoken on TV about murder. Hello, perspective. Every detective that has ever worked a crime scene has said the identical same thing. It is a smell unlike any smell, and you will know what it is when you smell it. So if a detective said in the charging documents that when he walked into the King Road home, blood rose to his nose, and this would have to have been right after 12 when they finally made it to the house, why these kids didn't smell iron, why these kids didn't smell death, make it make sense. You'd have to have smelled it. You'd have to have said something ain't right. What's that smell? And I've told you of my experience with a suicide. You can smell it. And you don't have to be in the same room. I smelled it as soon as I walked in the front door where my cousin unalived himself upstairs in a townhouse. I could smell the blood as soon as the door opened. So that detective ain't lied, and I'm definitely ain't lying to you. He shot himself in the head, and I could smell it, and the blood was still up there in that room. So even if I had never experienced this, I've watched too many programs where it has been said, you can smell death. Rightfully so. So in the end, all this stuff that Gonzalez is talking about, it doesn't matter. It's about common sense. You can smell death. You don't have to see a dead person. It is what it is. Wow, wow, wow. Don't know how many people are going to testify in August. Don't know if Mr. Korberger's parents, sisters are going to testify, what information they can bring. Anyone going to stand account for the missing knife? Only a fool would say, yeah, I ordered it, and knowing they didn't. Doesn't that mean they would have to manufacture the knife? And I don't think that would work in their favor. I'm sure these young people are very leery about testifying, worrying about sitting in front of an audience, 12 members of a jury, open court testifying to their life at King Road, their relationships with the girls, Ethan, any oddities. And I've always asked those questions. Was there anything that stood out to any of the girls that was strange, bizarre in the months leading up to their murders? Any notes, letters sent to them, anything odd with their car, the house, the doors, windows? Because a lot of times people don't pay attention to things. But when you become a detail-oriented person, or you are a detail-oriented, you notice things. You notice the faint smell of something when you enter a room. Because I notice little things like that. Odors. I can walk in my room or walk into the apartment and know that something is off just by the smell of the room. And this is why you have to pay attention to your surroundings. That's why it's best to try to keep everything in its place. I get it, sometimes when you're rushing, you got stuff scattered here, makeup over here, a purse over here, an outfit thrown over here. But the point is, you want to keep things in a certain way in case somebody has decided to enter into your house and did a little rumbling and rambling around. You need to pay attention to how you position things so you know if they've been moved or not. And if you feel uneasy after stepping into a room, you need to quickly remove yourself and try to get to safety. Because many people do believe that Korberger did a dry run at this residence. And that will be even more disturbing to find out that Korberger has been in his house before that fateful morning. That he was in there. And what'll be even more scary, he was there when those kids were there. And they didn't even know he was in there. How scary would that be? To know someone has hid in a closet or somewhere in that house and you didn't even know he was there. And naturally, he could have easily blended in too when they had house parties. He could have just said, oh yeah, Peter invited me, Bob invited me. I don't think they would have said anything. You're talking about hundreds of people, 60, 70 people hanging outside, hanging in the back, hanging inside. Who's going to say anything? And Korberger didn't look like an older person, so he could have blended in quite fine. Walked around, sat around, looked at the people, grabbed a beer, and then right there near his pray the entire time. Mercy, if walls could talk. But the house is gone now. And also there's some people who feel like the house should have remained, so the jury could walk through the house, hear the sounds of the house, which I agree to some point, because it's going to be hard to describe things without actually being able to walk through, see for yourself, see places that a person could hide, vantage points to watch the house, look into the house, survey the house, because he could have been anywhere watching the house, behind the house, perfect spot, that parking lot. Could have just stood there and watched. There's a street that ran behind that house. Very scary. And the another scary thing is knowing that someone is stalking you, watching you, lying in wait for that perfect opportunity to hurt you. And this is why I said you have to pay attention to things such as walking into your house, looking at things the way they're situated, noticing odd smells in your house, if things have been moved, cars sitting outside, passing your house a lot, same color car, same person walking by, acting funny, acting strange. You do need to be aware of your faculties. And I think a lot of young people don't pay attention to certain details because people are so busy with ripping and running and being on their phones And, I go by the University of Tennessee a lot through the week. And that's the one thing I've noticed when I'm over there on the college campus passing through is that everybody is on their phone. I mean, literally, I'm watching young people walk to the curb with their heads down, looking in their phones. It is the craziest phenomenon. Everybody is on their phone, eating on their phone, walking, looking in the phone, looking downward, not even aware of anyone behind them, beside them, in front of them, standing at a curb, looking at their phone, looking down. Nobody is aware of anything. And sadly, older adults are doing the same. You're at your job looking at the phone. You're at the curb looking at your phone. You're going out to eat with guests. You're looking at your phone. Nobody is aware of anything. And what some of you just don't want to accept, I guess, is that is what a predator is looking for you to be unaware of your faculties. He wants you to forget about the window up. You forgetting to lock the window. You forgetting to lock the side door, French doors. You're letting the dog out, the cat out. You refuse to fix that glass door. You have a balcony, but you leave the glass door unlocked. That's what he wants you to do, is to forget and not care. That's why it's always been called window of opportunity, because that is what a perpetrator is looking for. You're sitting in your car when you should be turning the key over, but you're too busy looking in your phone, sending text messages when you should be on your way to work, on your way to class, getting your errands done, but you're in your phone. You pull up, park your car in the parking space. Instead of you getting out to go where you need to go, you're on that damn phone. Accepting friends that you don't really know and don't know if they're really those people or not. Stay woke. That's why I always tell people to go to the page and look at the profile. You don't see a lot of friends. Let's say a person sends you a friend suggestion, it's only 26 friends. Delete it. Delete it and block it. Somebody just all of a sudden liking stuff on your page. IG, Facebook. Like a. But you don't know them. Friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. Once again, as I said, go to the profile, check out the profile. Something don't seem right, block, delete. Be aware. Because for all we know, Korberger was in the midst and these girls saw something peculiar, strange, but no big deal. Because there are too many people living in that house and something possibly could have stood out, but nobody paid attention enough to care. So you see, self-preservation is number one, and it should always be first. And that's where I said there was something wrong with Bethany and Dylan. They didn't even care about self, let alone the other kids. Because at some point, we know they knew that something wasn't right because they called Hunter and Emily to come over. And before that, they called parents and other friends. So you really didn't get any sleep. And you knew something wasn't right seeing that guy in the mask. And yet you still stayed in that house, still didn't check on Xana after seeing her passed out, still didn't think to go upstairs to look at anybody else's room, and you didn't even care enough about your own damn self. Because what if Korberger had decided he wanted to just grab him a glass of milk and hang out? There have been people who killed people and hung around in their house. Because what you always have to remember about this story, Korberger came back. Checkmate. That's my commentary. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to The Vault Exhale.